in today's modern day and age? How applicable is this in today's age? Because, you know, when we talk about the sacrifices our forefathers made for this beautiful country, to that extent at least we understand that yes, it did apply, because there was a lot of, you know, recognition, there was a lot of, you know, owning up to those sacrifices. But today, as society has evolved, as young people have changed, how applicable, how relevant is it in today's time?
Well, I think young people today also have their own invigorated and renewed feelings about Pakistan. Pakistan is a young nation, and our children definitely have I think a great spirit when it comes to 14th August, thinking about Pakistan, the celebratory mood in which they are, no matter what, even if with children who are in floods, you know, I saw them talking to the Prime Minister. They spoke about education. Right. They spoke about the spirit to serve their nation, their community and their families. I think, you know, that signifies the spirit of Pakistan. It is the young generation today that really makes that difference and makes us all feel so energized. People like myself, born 9 years after partition, may feel tired at times. But they are still full of hope.
And also, madam, the fact, I think that they are really making a name for themselves in different walks of life. Like Arshad Nadeem recently, basically.
Look at, not just them, but look at, so many you know, all these wonderful sports people. And I was in Skardu the other day, and I had this lovely little young girl, 5 years old, Manur, who is the ambassador for winter sports in Skardu, in Gilgit-Baltistan.
That's amazing.
And she skated right in the middle of the inaugural ceremony.
Right.
A 5-year-old, and I said, you know, where do you study, which grade? And she said, I'm in nursery, ma'am. And she's already an ambassador for winter sports in Pakistan.
It's just not, on which, madam, I'll come to, you know, having generally spoken about, you know, how the healthcare system has evolved, I think we should also talk about, you know, the evolving of women, because we remember that, you know, when Pakistan was actually created, a lot of stress was placed on giving women the same, you know, equality, the same rights as we did to, you know, the male counterparts. And in this regard, I remember this very famous quotation of Jinnah, which goes something like that, you know, no nation can rise to the heights of glory until and unless your women are with you. So in today's day and age, now when we see women, how empowered do you find Pakistani women? Also, when it comes to giving them the right opportunities, allowing them to, you know, rise to glory, so to speak, do you feel as a society we give them the right opportunities?
I think for women it has always been a struggle, and yes, they have risen to great heights in Pakistan. If you look at the women scientists of Pakistan, they are just bringing some wonderful glory to this country, working in cutting-edge sciences, whether it is Sayyidat Tasneem Zahra, whether it is this wonderful young person, Lala Rukh Shams, who's doing Science Fuse, trying to popularize STEM when it comes to girls' education in particular. But, you know, for women, it has been a struggle, and yet women, when you look at the likes of Jahanara, who's now running the Catalyst Labs in ICT, digital technologies, etc., we are seeing women just coming in civil service, in you name it. But for them, it still remains a big struggle, and they do it. So that's why when you look at the higher secondary school examinations, women far outnumber the boys.
And recently we've also seen this woman from the minorities, from the Hindu minorities, make it to the police forces. She was appointed as a senior cop.
And any, so whether it's irrespective of religion, of socioeconomic status, they are able to rise and do wonders, provided there is an enabling environment.
Right, madam. But I think you've raised a very valid point that when we talk about, you know, giving women that enabling environment, what all must that environment ideally entail?
Because women need a protection. They need a possibility where they can ensure that they can express themselves and grow. That's why we are insisting that life skills are so essential. Sometimes life skills are passed on within a family very positively. Take the case of Asubai in Tharparkar and Umarkot. She set up this amazing, a disabled minority young girl once, whose father said, go for it, set up a girls' school. There is no girls' school here. I will help you with this much. Now, so many people have helped her. Now she runs a full-fledged girls' school going right up to metric.
Right.
And a disabled person from the minority community in a very impoverished district of this country, met her there as well, but just to feel so empowered in themselves that what they are doing is right. There are people in the family supporting them, there are other people who are supporting them, they're being recognized by the world.
Right.
I think that's the kind of empowerment and enabling that comes. But especially I will come to this whole issue of life skills,
Right.
where there is a sense of self-awareness, identity, being able to know that you have the capability to move forward, to do something beyond yourself.
Right.
I think the sense of the collective and oneself is so important. We do not give importance in schools, etc., but all our programs and
Madam,
others.
I think when we talk about the education, when we talk about education policy, education system as it has been evolving, I think a very positive change that we do see now is that switch to digital education, which is something which we saw during the COVID-19 pandemic as well. But overall, you know, if you were to weigh the pros and cons, how do you evaluate this?
Today we were talking to the Secretary of Education Punjab exactly on this, that please look at this big opportunity. We are not at a point where in a household every member has a smartphone, but we are at a point where we clocking almost 70% of households with smartphones, 90% plus with cell phones, and in fact all our social safety nets such as BISP, SRs, etc. are all actually happening on the mobile phones. So is NADRA. But recently the switch also of hybrid learning through SMSs, through WhatsApp messages, through all of this has a huge promise. We cannot undermine it and we can't hold it back. We must recognize, yes, we live in a world of digital inequity in Pakistan. There is a huge divide between haves and have-nots, those who have access to internet, etc., etc. But we need to move forward progressively in the spirit of Pakistan that this is happening. And you had earlier spoken about digital safety.
Right.
You know, just this year we will be reaching out 100,000 youngsters, essentially high school students, teachers across the whole country, and youth community activists for digital safety so that they can become responsible citizens. But I do want to say, Fatma Manti, that in the spirit of the 75 years of Pakistan, I think it's time that we left the misogynistic trends, enabled people to be happy. So if young girls, adolescent girls, young youth are happy and smiling.
I think things have changed. I think young people now, I think there is this element of self-love in them, which we didn't see before.
Yes, and to say yes,
and women, I feel, I think you would be in a better position, of course, because, you know, considering that you're the most senior on the panel today, you would be in the best position to comment on that. Even the women of today, she's so empowered if you see her.
I mean, I saw going to Kasur the other day, this young mother, she had transformed her scooter and made 3 chairs at the very innovative, because she had 3 children and she must have been picking them up from school and going. And then people in Kasur said, ma'am, you don't know how many young women now are on scooters, as I saw them in Bhavalpur, as I see them in other parts of the country. Makes you feel happy. And I think the society needs to now create a whole code of conduct about accepting people in these new...
Madam, I think we must also talk about this with regards to women and their projection in the Pakistani media. So, whereas of course we see that, you know, women are getting more projection, more so on, you know, the TV talk shows, and of course, you know, more so in being reporters themselves too. But do you feel that, you know, the light in which they are portrayed, that is, you know, a true account of what the true Pakistani empowered woman is today?
Generally speaking, I would say that this is a huge shift and a positive one to see more and more women coming in media, whether they are anchor persons like yourself, whether they are coming in roles of producers, whether they are in serials, etc. But the question is, how are we projecting them? The question is, the issue is that they need to have the independence, and we need to have more diversified roles of women in the media, which we don't always see, especially in our serials. Serials definitely have a huge influencing power, not just in Pakistan but all over the world, because they are known and they are very well liked everywhere, not just in South Asia but beyond. So the question is, what kind of roles are we projecting? We have a huge opportunity that we cannot miss. So let's give space to those wonderful women who've done those great things, right from and girls from very young ages who've been able to achieve so much, break the barriers, you know, and I think and raise the standards,
of course,
and broken the stereotypes, because you need that, and Pakistan has got so many of those that we can't say, oh, we are now short because we can't get somebody in Turbat to show that we have got women there, or we don't have anybody in GB, Gilgit-Baltistan, or in remote Sindh or anywhere. You name it, we got it.
Right, ma'am. What would your message be on today's special Independence Day transmission, especially when it comes to giving back to Pakistan, when it comes to renewing our pledge to our beautiful country?
So I think, you know, 75 years of Pakistan, and we see our biggest asset are our human resources, all of them. And it's very important to see how we can empower them. Coming from education, one of the biggest cry for people is, please let me learn well, give me those skills so that I can be able to become more healthy and a more responsible person and a happier person. A happy person in Pakistan would mean a far more productive person, and a person who can give back to this country manifold. Women, sadly, are missing numbers in Pakistan. They grow with a natural advantage of living longer lives, but sadly, because of whatever conditions in which the women suffer and the girls suffer, we end up having a lower proportion of women compared to men. And this kind of gender inequality has to go. And the only way it can go is through education and empowerment with life skills. And of course, as I said, skilling with livelihoods. Women need a different narrative altogether, the narrative which fits today's girls and women in Pakistan, not the old narrative with which we are stuck. So I think that definitely needs a makeover.
It has to be more relevant in today's modern age.
Relevant, and also the role that youth are playing is a wonderfully powerful role.
And this is something that they need to carry on.
Where girls and women need to be in the forefront.
Right, madam, your point is noted.